All right, let's pray for class. Father, we're thankful unto Thee for this day. We're grateful, Father, that we can meet here to study from Thy Word. We pray, Father, that these lessons that we will study in all of our classes this morning will cause us to grow in knowledge and in faith toward Thee. We ask, Father, that Thou would be with each member of this congregation. We pray, Father, for all of those who are unable to be with us this morning. We ask that Thou would go with us as we study and forgive us if we've done wrong. Through Christ we pray. Amen. All right, we're on lesson 3 in New Testament geography this morning. Those of you who are visiting, we've got several. We're happy to have you. Thank you for joining us for class this morning. New Testament geography, lesson 3. We're still in the life of Christ in this lesson this morning. Question 1, which is card 17. Gadara, which is found in Luke chapter 8, verse 26 through 28. Luke chapter 8, verse 26 through 28. And they arrived at the country of the Gadarenes, which is over against Galilee. And when he went forth, that is Jesus, there met him out of the city a certain man, which had devils or demons long time, and wear no clothes, neither abode in any house, but in the tombs. And when he saw Jesus, he cried out, and fell down before him with a loud voice, and said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God Most High? I beseech thee, torment me not. So the answer to the blank for question 1, Gadara, is where demons cast into swine. If we look down, look a little further into this text, in verse 29, it said, For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For oft times it caught him, and he was kept bound with chains and fetters, and brake the bands, and was driven of the demon into the wilderness. And Jesus asked him, saying, What is thy name? And he said, Legion, because many demons were entered into him. And they besought him that he would not command them to go out into the deep. And there was an herd of swine feeding on the mountain, and they besought him that he would suffer them to enter in to them. And he suffered them. They went the demons out of the man and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down a steep place into the lake where they were choked. So the blank is where demons were cast into swine. In the New Testament age, there are, during Jesus' lifetime, depending on how you count it, there are 4 to 6 occasions where he cast out demons that possessed people living in that time. The people who were possessed of demons lost physical control of their body and what they said and what they did. The demons controlled them, apparently, from what we see in these texts. And there was no treatment or cure for it. There was nothing that man could do for it. And when Jesus burst on the scene in his public ministry, he has complete rule and domination over this possession of demons. Man could do nothing for it. Jesus could cast them out and restore the victims to being whole, back in their right mind, it says in the text, but it wasn't a condition of insanity. But they were, the demons would leave them, and they would have control of their physical body and of their speech and their mind and all those things. Jesus always had complete command to do that with no difficulty whatsoever. The demons usually recognized him in this case as being superior to them, realizing that as the Son of God, they had no power over Jesus. Verse 2, Gadara is located on the southeast end of the Dead Sea of southeast end of the Sea of Galilee in Decapolis. Which is right over here. Hopefully my cursor's up there. Yep. Gadara is right here in this area of Decapolis. We brought up Decapolis, I think, in the last lesson. I don't know that we stated it, but Decapolis was in the period between the Testaments, which Jeremy Manchester talked about a few weeks ago, I think on a Wednesday night. This area of the region was repopulated during the Greek age. After the death of Alexander, it was repopulated by Greek-speaking and thinking people before the Roman Empire was established. So there's still, most of these people in Decapolis tended to be Gentiles as a general rule. It doesn't say what this man is, but I've kind of supposed that he was, but it doesn't say. It's kind of interesting. We talked about how that the Jews in Judea generally avoided going through Samaritans because they hated the Samaritans, and the Samaritans felt similarly toward them. They generally went around Samaria into Perea and then up to Decapolis in order to get to the region of Galilee. So Jesus sometimes went through Decapolis apparently, and sometimes he went through Samaria, as we saw last week. Number 3, where Peter confessed Jesus, Matthew 16, verse 13. Matthew 16, verse 13. Text that should be familiar to us as Bible students. Matthew 16, verse 13. And when Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And they said, Some say that thou art John the Baptist, and some Elias, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. And he saith unto them, But whom say ye that I am? And Simon Peter answered and said, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell or Hades shall not prevail against it. And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Then charged he his disciples that they should tell no man that he was Jesus the Christ. So where did Peter confess Jesus? Verse 13? Somebody? Caesarea Philippi, verse 13. It's the top of this map we've got up on the screen. It's north of Galilee, so here we'll see question 4. Caesarea Philippi is located 20 miles north of the Sea of Galilee and 30 miles inland from the Mediterranean Sea. So the first verse is 20. First blank is 20. Second blank is north. Third blank is 30. And fourth blank is the Mediterranean. So it's outside of the region of Galilee. It's north of there. But Jesus occasionally went that far north. Number 5, the city is named after who? Who was the father of Alexander the Great?
Philip.
All right, Philip of Macedon was how he was known. Philip of Macedon. The city was named after Philip of Macedon and Caesar. That's why it's Caesarea Philippi. We'll see later in our study that Macedon or Macedonia in Bible times was the province right north of Greece on the Grecian Peninsula. And we'll study that a little bit more later. So what did Peter confess in verse 16?
Christ, the Son of God.
Christ, the Son of the living God. So other people gave various answers, but Peter and the other disciples, none of the other disciples disputed Peter They'd been with Jesus long enough to see that he was the Son of God, that he was able to work all sorts of miracles of casting out the demons, raising the dead, feeding the multitudes, calming the sea. And they knew by close observation that no one else could do the things that Jesus had done, and that he was the Son of God. Essentially, he's saying that he was deity in the flesh. All right, number 6. The home of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Where's that at? Bethany. All right. Looking at John chapter 11 and verse 1. John chapter 11 and verse 1. Somebody will read that for me?
Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha.
All right. So Bethany was the home of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. On our map, you can see up there are 2 dots almost together where I moved the cursor to. Bethany's the one, if you're looking at it, on the right. Question 7, Bethany is located 2 miles southeast of Jerusalem on the eastern slope of Mount Olivet. The blanks are southeast and Mount Olivet. Number 8, Bethany is where Jesus raised who? Lazarus from the dead. So in this chapter here, careful reading of it's pretty lengthy. We're not going to attempt to do all that in class, but we've listed, connected with this question, verses 1 through 46. Please take a look at that this week in preparation for Wednesday night. Perhaps we'll read a little bit more of that. But it's a very interesting chapter. Last week, maybe it was Wednesday night or maybe it was in here, we mentioned that how many people did Jesus raise from the dead? 3. And so Lazarus is one of them, the daughter of Jairus, the ruler of the temple, and we mentioned last week, the son of the widow at Nain, right? So Jesus performed those 3 resurrections. They were all very interesting. What sticks out to you, and most of us are probably, those of us who've been Bible students, know the story of Lazarus being raised from the dead. What sticks out to you in that story? I'll take some comments. I've got several things in mind. He was undoubtedly dead. How many days had it been before his resurrection?
3, 4.
I think it was 4, right? I didn't read that verse here, but I believe it was 4. So for the Jews, he would have died on one day, dead one day, dead one day, buried the next day, right? When did Jesus arrive in that deal? He arrived on day 1?
No.
Day 2? Day 3? No. It's after day 4 when Jesus arrived, right? So Lazarus had been dead. This is, he's been dead for those days. Jesus intentionally delayed. So this is in close proximity to Jerusalem. Probably take me far too long to find the verse, but who was at this event after the death of Jesus, after the death of Lazarus? Who came out to this? Anybody know? Text says, but I didn't look up the verse, so it'll take me too long to find it. Who came out of Jerusalem? The sisters were there, sure. Who else? In Jerusalem was, what's that? Many Jews. The idea is, if we read through this, that many of the leading Pharisees and Sadducees came out to this funeral, to probably the morning before that funeral. That was the type of thing they did. Uh, so there were many people of authority in Jerusalem that had to have known this family. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, only 2 miles from Jerusalem, but Jerusalem in the New Testament times was not the huge metropolis we saw on Wednesday night looking at the pictures that is sprawled outside the old city walls now, but it was a smaller place. Apparently many people knew Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, and they frequently had apparently large numbers of guests in their homes, so they must have been a well-known family and a prominent family. And so Jesus gave all these people time to come out to see that, yes, indeed, Lazarus was dead. He had been put in the tomb, all right? And Jesus Jesus intentionally delayed his arrival so that many others would have witnessed the fact that Lazarus was dead, and then that Jesus raised him powerfully in front of many, many witnesses of the leading Jewish people. What did we look at verse 45, that's where I wanted to go. Then many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things which Jesus did believed on him. And some of them went their way to the Pharisees and told them what things Jesus had done. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, "What do we do? For this man doeth many miracles. If we let him alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans will come and take both our place and our nation." And one of them, named Caiaphas, being the high priest that same year, said unto them, "Ye know nothing at all, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not." And this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus should die for that nation, and not for that nation only, but also that he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered about. Then from that day forward they took counsel for to put him to death. Jesus therefore walked no more openly among the Jews, but went thence into a country near to the wilderness, into a city called Ephraim, and there continued with his disciples. So following this miracle, he had generated a great deal more animosity, being that this miracle happened in much more close proximity to Jerusalem, the seat of their power. They felt threatened by that and by Jesus following among the people who believed him. And it greatly raised their animosity and their planning to put him to death. So this miracle has this great, and I think of this event, this great power struggle, right? Jesus able to raise Lazarus from the dead with numbers of people where it could not be denied in that scene. No reasonable person could have denied that Jesus did this miracle. Jay, you're going to be talking about the miracles next quarter, and that's going to be true throughout them, isn't it? No reasonable person looking at that, on those miracles, and especially this one, possibly with hundreds of people having been to their house, no one could reasonably deny that Jesus did it. And so the Jewish leaders, the high priest included, planned to put Jesus to death and to end Jesus' ability to influence the people. It wasn't, they were going to be successful and put him to death, but not ending his influence among the people. So we look on the next page at number 9. The home of Zacchaeus, Luke number 19. Luke chapter 19, excuse me. Home of Zacchaeus, Luke chapter 19. Mm. 19:1 and 2, and Jesus entered and passed through Jericho, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, which was the chief among the publicans, and he was rich. So where was the home of Zacchaeus? Jericho. Question 10, Jericho is located east, right there, northeast of Jerusalem, first blank's Jerusalem, 5 miles west of the Jordan and 7 miles north of the Dead Sea. So it's northeast of Jerusalem, 5 miles west of the Jordan River, 5 miles west of the Jordan River, 7 miles north of the Dead Sea. All right. Zacchaeus was, question 11, Zacchaeus was a what? Tax collector in our language. They called it a publican and considered to be a rich man. Luke 19, verse 2. How did tax collectors of that era operate under the Roman Jewish government? How'd that work?
Overcharged for taxes.
All right. They Rome expected a certain amount of tax to be collected, right? And I think they could legally charge a little bit more for their fee, but as things might be, they tended to charge a lot more, or at least that's what the Jews believed. And no doubt it's probably true. They often overcharged. That was the mark against them, right? Nobody here has ever felt overcharged on taxes, right? Nobody. Okay, good. Got that working for us. Okay, I have a little bit, especially kids lost that child deduction. It's waiting. I'm sure a bunch of you felt that too. All right.
Well, the reason they're complicated is so you pay more than you need to.
Yes, they're always willing to take more. If you'd like to donate more or think you owe more, they're very happy to tell you that. They're happy to let you do that. They're very happy to tell you if you didn't pay enough. They're not going to let that slide by. Just how it is. All right. What other Bible event occurred in Jericho? All right, Joshua and the marching around Jericho, lesson that the children study a lot more than we do. The city walls of Jericho fell down on the seventh day, I think, with 7 times marching around the city and the blowing of the trumpets, just exactly as God had told them to do. And that was at the beginning of the conquest of Canaan. My understanding from an archaeological point of view is that was the older city of Jerusalem. The walls fell down, Jericho. And this newer city in the time of Christ, they had built, next to that one or right close to it. So it was still called Jericho, but I think they've uncovered the ruins that are beside it or near to it. Archaeologists did, a couple hundred years ago or whatever, 150 years ago. So it's not built on the exact soil. They didn't remove the old wall. It was too much rubble. It was just easier to go beside somewhere right near there, build another city, call it Jericho. All right, Zacchaeus was, number 11. Zacchaeus was a tax collector and considered to be rich. Everybody get all those blanks? Anybody missing a blank? We need to build in there. All right, number 12. Jesus betrayed at Gethsemane. Number 12, card 21 is Gethsemane. If we look at Matthew chapter 26. Matthew chapter 26, beginning in verse 36 through 37. Then cometh Jesus with them unto a place called Gethsemane, and said unto his disciples, Sit ye here while I go yonder and pray. And he took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, and began to be sorrowful and very heavy. So Jesus went to Gethsemane with his disciples. This is the night that he would be betrayed. These lessons have kind of compacted it down. So we've gone from these other events now to the point of where this is Jesus' betrayal night and shortly his crucifixion. Of Question 13, Gethsemane was a garden on the Mount of Olives and is located east of Jerusalem. That's not right. All right, I got a little bit later picture of that we'll bring up in a minute. But it's located on the Mount of Olives, and we said a while ago that Bethany was also located in that same direction. So beyond Gethsemane, a little bit beyond that is where Bethany was located. Kind of putting it all in context, back in question number 6, card number 19, this is Jesus comes from Galilee down to Judea. He goes through Decapolis and Perea, and then he comes into Bethany with, I'm going to raise it. He comes to Bethany, and he raises Lazarus from the dead. The Jews oppose him greatly. He leaves there, as we read in one of the previous texts, and goes just north of there to Ephraim, and then over to the wilderness area of Judea to escape Jerusalem. Then he goes through Jericho and sees Zacchaeus and those events. And then shortly after that, he comes back to spends an evening with Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Then in a day or two after that, he is in Jerusalem. He goes to the Garden of Gethsemane, and he is betrayed there by Judas. So these events from the first time through Bethany until this one are just a few weeks or maybe a month or two. All right? So his raising of Lazarus is a few weeks or a couple of months before his death and resurrection. Hope that's kind of got that in context. We've got so few events in this one lesson that you can't get a sense of that time. That sense of time was a few weeks. All right. Number 14. I was going to read there regarding Gethsemane. I was going to read a few more verses. Matthew 26, verse 51. Matthew 26, 51. And behold, one of them, which were with Jesus, stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck a servant of the high priest and smote off his ear. Of course, this is Simon Peter that grabbed the sword of the servant and cut off the servant's ear. And then Jesus said unto him, Put up again thy sword into its place, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to the Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then shall the scriptures be fulfilled, that thus it must be? And the same hour Jesus said unto the multitudes, Are ye come out as against a thief with swords and staves for to take me? I sat daily with you teaching in the temple, and ye laid no hand on me. But all this was done that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled. For then all the disciples forsook him and fled. So here we see the final result of his capture in Gethsemane. He's taken by the Jewish authorities. The Romans had given the Jewish authorities that were composed of Sadducees and Pharisees, the leading Jews and the high priests, they had certain civil authority as granted by the Romans to basically police and keep the peace. Although at this time there was a Roman governor, there had been several of those following the death of Herod and his son that were over Judea. And that's, of course, now Pilate, which we're familiar with. And he had Roman soldiers there, but the Jews had a certain amount of civil authority that was given to him, so they had soldiers assigned to them for the purpose of locally keeping the peace and attempting to manage their own affairs. Jesus points out here that it is a plan of God that's being fulfilled, that he would be betrayed, he would be captured, he would be investigated, as Pilate's going, as they said at that time, examined. That means scourged, beaten until you gave the answer they wanted to hear, basically. And then he would be put to death. So Jesus realized, he prayed to the Father earlier in this chapter that it would be possible that he not have to suffer and endure this, but he did. He suffered and endured it for us. All right, if we look at question number 14, card number 22, the home of Simon who carried the cross. Mark 15, verse 21. Simon who carried the cross. Mark 15 and 21. Somebody want to read verse 21? Mark 15, 21. Somebody got that?
And they could tell the passerby, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his cross.
All right. So Cyrene is located, if you look at this animated map here, way across the coast of Egypt. He had come from a very long distance. This was what was going on when Jesus was crucified. The Jewish Passover, right? So that was a feast that all Jews were supposed to attend. So we assume Simon was a Jew in Cyrene, and he had come to Jerusalem for the Passover, a great distance. I think that's at least 600 or 700 miles. It's a long way over there. 500 for sure. Today, Cyrene is in modern Libya, I believe. But at that time, it was just all called Egypt. Cyrene was located, number 15, Cyrene was located west of Egypt, due south across the Mediterranean Sea from Greece. So you go straight north across the sea, that's Greece, and I think that's 500 or 600 miles over there. Great distance. All right, so he is, when Jesus is too weak to carry the cross, Simon of Cyrene is pulled from the side of the road or the way and compelled to carry Jesus' cross. Question number 16. Jesus is crucified at where? Let's look at Matthew 27, verse 33 through 35. Chapter 27, verse 33. And as they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. Him they compelled to bear the cross. And they were coming to a place called Golgotha, that is to say, a place of the skull. They gave him vinegar to drink mixed with gall. And when he had tasted thereof, he would not drink. So Jesus was crucified at Golgotha. That's the answer to number 16 in card 23. Golgotha. Number 17, Golgotha was located outside the city of Jerusalem, but the exact location is unknown. So number 17, the blank is outside the city of Jerusalem. Blank is Jerusalem. Number 18, Golgotha means place of the skull. That's from verse 33, place of the skull. All right, we've got a fairly interesting chart, I hope, over here that'll help us understand what happened to Jesus. Gethsemane was out here on the east, outside the city of Jerusalem. Wednesday night, we looked at some video considering what the city would have been like. This would have been the temple area, right here. That would have been the temple area and the temple walls. The temple was actually this area right here in the center. The inner courtyard, the holy of holies, or the holy place, and then the most holy place back here in the back. The temple, the video we looked at, some of you were not here Wednesday night, but this is the palace built by Herod. The first temple was built by Solomon back around 960 BC. It was destroyed in about 586 BC by the Babylonians. Around 536 BC, Zerubbabel returned from Babylon, rebuilt a temple which stood until Herod the Great in about BC 20 built this temple. the temple area, the court, the outer walls were greatly enlarged. And this area was so large that the video Wednesday night said that you could put 26 football fields on this temple area. It was absolutely enormous. All right? And so Gethsemane is out here in this area outside that. Bethany would have been going on up. This isn't north. North is in this direction on this picture. East is in this direction. All right? So Bethany was out past Gethsemane. Jesus is taken by the soldiers and brought into the city, into the palace of the high priest, which was right here, which is this building right here, I believe, where my cursor is wrapped around. Building the high priest, who was Caiaphas at that time. It's fascinating. They have, in last few decades, somebody found in some burial caves in some place they excavated in Jerusalem. The way they did that is they usually put the body in a tomb or something like that until all the flesh and everything decomposed from the bones. Then they took that person's bones and put them in a final resting place. I don't know if this was years later or what. But if you remember, Joseph had his bones brought back from Egypt, right, Jeremy? You mentioned that, I think, one of your lessons last quarter. His bones were brought back from Egypt and buried in Judea when they came back from Egypt. And so they found an ossuary, this box, and I've got a picture of it somewhere. It's about so big, about that deep. And it actually has the name Caiaphas the high priest on that box in Hebrew or whatever. And it was the type, it was very ornate, so it would have been the type correct for someone of the high priest status in that age. And so, very interesting. So from there, Jesus is taken from the palace of the high priest down to Pilate at what was called the Praetorium. This was the area that Herod the Great. Let me tell you, this is Herod's palace. This is Herod the Great. He built this palace here, and his son ruled Judea, and then they went to a governor system from Rome. And so now Pilate, the fifth governor sent from Rome, occupies this place. I think the Praetorium was an open courtyard where they kind of held court a lot of times. And so Jesus is brought there and tried before Pilate after he's come to the high priest. Pilate sends him back to Herod Antipas, who was one of the, should I look that up before I got here, I believe grandson of, may have been the son or grandson of Herod the Great, and he ruled part of this area of Palestine. Jesus, if you remember, what did he say to Herod? You may remember what he said to Herod when Herod questioned him? Nothing. Never said a word to Herod. He was asked questions, made no defense, no anything. All right? Then Herod, after a bit, sends him back to Pilate, said, I have nothing I can tell you because he didn't tell me anything. Then following that, the people asked for him to, you remember Herod said, told the people, the Jewish leaders, we found no fault in him. I wish to release him, and they refused to accept that. And so then Pilate says, as you will, you can crucify him. So he's taken from the city there to Golgotha. It's a little bit unsure whether Golgotha was this area right here or this area up here. They really don't know today. The video we saw Wednesday night, this is called the lower city down here. This is the oldest part of the city. And then they expanded up to here, and they expanded on above that in Herod and Jesus' day. So why did they expand north? We talked about that Wednesday night. Anybody remember why they expanded the city to the north and not east, west, or south? Well, the city was on a great hill, right? So you can't really see it on this map, but these are very steep hills all around this area. So it basically got expanded out to the north, and this was a hill area here where Golgotha would have been. The city really expanded out this way. And then today, in modern times, it encompasses way more than this entire picture. Excuse me. All right. Jesus was taken on Thursday night in Gethsemane, I believe, isn't that right, Jay? Thursday night. And he's tried Friday morning and put on the cross, Friday morning, tried during the night, crucified Friday and dies Friday night. Taken from the cross before Saturday started, according to the Jewish calendar, and Friday evening. He's in the tomb Saturday, and then on Sunday morning he rises from the dead. All right, any questions about that? Got a minute or two? Questions or observations? Yes?
You already said, but how big is that, like, in miles, the city there on that map?
I have looked at that in the past. I'm looking at a little map I've got right here, and I can't tell from this map. There's no scale on there.
I was wondering how far they had to take them.
So, and I don't know if this is obviously an artist's drawing, shall we say, and is everything drawn to scale? I don't know. But as we said, the best I can tell you is this palace, the temple grounds, as I said, was 26 football fields, so it's absolutely enormous. So, you know, this may be a mile or two right here from one end of the city to the other at this time, maybe. You know, a mile across, 2 miles long, maybe it's 3 miles long, something like that. It's not anything like a modern city like we're used to living around right here, but it was a pretty large city in that time. And it was the capital of Judea and the Jewish world at that time. We pointed out on Wednesday night that when David took the city from the Jebusites about 1000 BC, that it was only about this big right here, just a small area. And since that time, which has been about 900 years, it's grown into this much larger area. Of course, the Babylonians in 586, 3 attacks ending in 586, they destroyed most of the city and the temple. And one of the things, if you were here for the video on Wednesday night, there was it showed several shots of these large boulders down below the walls of the temple area today that are just kind of piled up. Well, those are some of the rocks that the Babylonians pushed off the wall down these hills. It showed there was a rock street down there. I don't know if you can see it in this, but I've seen pictures where those boulders fell down and crushed the rock street. And and the prophecy was that the Babylonians would destroy the walls, and they did. And they killed, and later when the Romans come back, they did the same thing again, destroyed the temple walls. And they killed tens of thousands of Jews that were amassed in the temple area and threw them over this wall right here into this valley. So it was a brutal siege in AD 70. So the walls were destroyed twice. The Jews looked at it as 3 temples, 2 temples. They considered the temple of Zerubbabel to be the same as one Herod tore down, because Herod tore it down for peaceful reasons to build a new one. But there were really kind of 3 temples from our point of view. Solomon's temple, Zerubbabel's temple, and Herod's temple. I'll try to look up and find out what we think that is. But the city grew a lot during the Bible times, from David to Jesus. It grew and changed, partly with the destructions, partly with just as cities grow. All right, thank you.